The year is 1241. A thunder of hooves shakes the earth. Across the fields of Hungary, terrified European knights look to the horizon. What they see is unlike anything they've faced before. Waves of horsemen moving as one, arrows blotting out the sky, a storm of speed and precision. Within hours, an entire European army, tens of thousands strong, lies crushed. This is the story of the Mongols, a people born on the harsh steppes of Central Asia, who rose from scattered tribes to forge the largest land empire in human history. Their leader, Genghis Khan, was a man both feared as a butcher and remembered as a lawgiver. Their empire stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the gates of Vienna, reshaping civilizations forever. But how did a small nomadic tribe, with no great cities and no written language, conquer the world's mightiest kingdoms? And what made them unstoppable until suddenly they weren't? Let's uncover the epic rise, ruthless conquest, and enduring legacy of the Mongol Empire. To understand the Mongols, you must first understand the land that shaped them. The Central Asian steppe is a vast sea of grass, stretching thousands of miles, broken only by rivers and the occasional mountain. It is a land without walls where survival depends on speed, mobility, and unity. The people here were nomads, herding sheep, goats, and above all, horses. Horses were life. They provided milk, meat, transport, and war power. Every Mongol child learned to ride before they could walk, growing up with a bow in hand. But this life was also brutal. Tribes fought constantly over pastures, water, and livestock. Raids, kidnappings, and revenge killings were common. Alliances could crumble overnight. Leadership meant strength, charisma, and above all, loyalty. Out of this world of violence and survival, a boy named Temujin was born. Temujin was born around 1162 near the Onon River. His father was a tribal chief, but when Temujin was just 9 years old, his father was poisoned by enemies. Overnight, his family was abandoned, left to starve in the wilderness. Temujin grew up in hunger and fear, but also with iron determination. He learned early that survival required trust, not just blood ties. Instead of relying on tribal lineage, he began building alliances based on loyalty and merit. A blacksmith's son or a shepherd could rise as high as a noble if they proved their worth. This idea, merit over birth, was revolutionary, and it made Temujin different from the other warlords. Through a mixture of diplomacy, charisma, and ruthless violence, Temujin united rival clans. By 1206, he had defeated his enemies and stood as the undisputed leader of the steppe. A great council called a Kurultai proclaimed him Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. The Mongol Empire was born. What made the Mongols unstoppable? It wasn't sheer numbers. They were often outnumbered. It was organization, discipline, and innovation. Every soldier was a horse archer, able to ride at full gallop and fire arrows with deadly accuracy. They carried multiple horses, switching mounts mid-battle to stay fresh. Communication was their secret weapon. Units moved like clockwork, guided by signals, flags by day, torches by night, drums and horns in the chaos of battle. Then came their most terrifying tactic, the feigned retreat. Mongols would pretend to flee in panic, drawing enemies into pursuit, only to turn, encircle, and annihilate them. And they adapted. From the Chinese, they learned siege warfare, using catapults, battering rams, and even early gunpowder weapons. No city was safe. The world had never seen an army like this. Genghis Khan's first great target was the Jin dynasty of northern China. The Jin ruled from grand cities defended by massive walls. Many believed the nomadic Mongols could never breach such defenses. They were wrong. The Mongols surrounded cities, cutting off supplies. They used captured Chinese engineers to build siege engines. They even hurled flaming bombs over walls. City after city fell. In 1215, they captured Zhongdu, modern Beijing, burning it to the ground. The wealth of China poured into Mongol hands. But Genghis Khan didn't just plunder. He incorporated Chinese officials, artisans, and technologies into his empire. The Mongols weren't merely conquerors. They were absorbers of talent. After China, Genghis Khan turned west. His armies struck the Khwarezmian Empire, a powerful Muslim state stretching across Persia and Central Asia. At first, Genghis sought peace. He sent merchants to establish trade. But the Shah of Khwarezm betrayed him, executing the envoys and insulting Mongol authority. That was a fatal mistake. Genghis Khan unleashed total war. Cities were besieged and destroyed, populations slaughtered. Bukhara, Samarkand, Nishapur, once centers of Islamic culture, were left in ruins. To the Mongols, betrayal was unforgivable. Mercy was for those who submitted. Resistance was met with annihilation. This campaign carved a trail of terror across the Middle East, cementing the Mongols' reputation as a force of pure destruction. By the 1320s, Mongol armies surged westward into Russia and Eastern Europe. The speed of their advance was staggering. In 1241, at the Battle of Mohi in Hungary, European knights charged headlong at the Mongols. But their heavy armor was no match for Mongol mobility. Trapped on a bridge, the Hungarians were massacred. Panic spread across Europe. Rumors swirled of unstoppable Tartars from the east, devouring kingdoms. Some even feared the end of Christendom itself. But then suddenly, the Mongols withdrew. Why? Because Genghis Khan's successor, Ögedei, had died, and Mongol law required leaders to return home to choose a new Khan. Europe had been spared, not by victory but by timing. Despite their brutality, the Mongols also built something unexpected: peace. Under Mongol rule, trade routes across Asia were secured. Caravans could travel from China to Persia under the empire's protection. This era became known as the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol peace. The Silk Road flourished. Spices, silk, and porcelain traveled west. In return, silver, glass, and textiles flowed east. Ideas and inventions spread too: printing, gunpowder, the compass. Even diseases traveled. The Black Death reached Europe through these very trade routes. For a time, the Mongol Empire connected the world like never before. Genghis Khan wasn't just a conqueror, he was also a lawgiver. He established the Yasa, a code of laws that bound all Mongols. It enforced loyalty, outlawed theft, and punished betrayal. Religious tolerance was also a hallmark of Mongol rule. Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, and others were free to worship. The empire also pioneered the Yam system, a relay network of horses and riders carrying messages across thousands of miles. It was the medieval version of the internet, fast, efficient, and secure. And unlike many conquerors, the Mongols elevated people by merit. A farmer's son could command armies if he proved capable. This system made their empire dynamic and adaptable. In 1227, Genghis Khan died during a campaign against the Western Yia. The exact cause remains a mystery. Some say he was killed in battle, others whisper of illness or even assassination. He was buried in secret, his grave hidden. Legend says the funeral escort killed everyone they encountered to keep the location unknown. To this day, no one has found Genghis Khan's tomb. With his death, the empire passed to his sons and later his grandsons. The conquest continued, but so did rivalries. The empire Genghis built was vast, but also fragile. By the late 1200s, it fractured into four great khanates: the Yuan dynasty in China, the Ilkhanate in Persia, the Golden Horde in Russia, the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia. For a while, these khanates expanded Mongol influence. Kublai Khan, Genghis's grandson, ruled China and welcomed figures like Marco Polo. But unity faded. The khanates grew apart, consumed by internal rivalries and local influences. Over time, Mongol power declined, replaced by the very cultures they once conquered. By the 14th century, the Mongol Empire was a shadow of its former self. The Yuan dynasty was overthrown by Chinese rebels. The Golden Horde weakened under pressure from rising Russian states. The Ilkhanate collapsed in Persia. The steppe warriors who once ruled the world were now fragmented, absorbed, or defeated. Yet their impact never disappeared. They had redrawn the map of Eurasia, destroyed ancient kingdoms, and laid foundations for new ones. Were the Mongols destroyers or builders? The truth is both. They brought terror and devastation, wiping out cities and cultures. Yet they also connected East and West, spreading trade, ideas, and technologies. They created the largest contiguous land empire in history. They pioneered military tactics still studied today, and they showed the world how a vision, enforced by loyalty and discipline, could turn scattered tribes into an unstoppable force. Above all, the Mongols remind us of the power of unity. the danger of ambition, and the thin line between chaos and empire. From a boy abandoned on the steppe to an empire that stretched from Korea to Europe, the story of the Mongols is one of history's greatest transformations. They were horsemen who became emperors, nomads who shaped civilizations. Their legacy is still felt today, in trade, in warfare, and in the myths we tell of power and conquest. The Mongols rose from nothing, and for a time, they ruled everything. The Mongols have conquered half the known world, but the question is, could they be stopped? If you're still watching, you're clearly a true history fan. Make sure to join the community by subscribing. What would you do if you faced the Mongol horde charging across the steppe? Tell me in the comments. I'll be reading them.